Flickering television cast dancing shadows across the living room, mirroring the storm raging outside. 7-year-old Tommy, nestled in his blanket, was lost in the animated world of his favorite cartoon, oblivious to the growing tension in the house. His teenage sister Lily had retreated to her room hours ago, an unusual silence hanging over the house. Then, it happened. A blood-curdling scream shattered the quiet, sending a jolt of fear through Tommy's small body. His blood-curdling scream shattered the small robo-scream. Frozen in terror, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He picked up the phone and dialed 911. This is not just the story of a brave child. It's a chilling exploration of the darkness that can lurk behind the walls of seemingly perfect families. It's a story of shattered innocence, the enduring power of love, and the fight for justice against an invisible enemy. Welcome to a story that will stay with you long after the credits roll. This is not just a tale of a 911 call. It's a journey into the heart of a family in crisis, a family where secrets festered beneath the surface of everyday life. We will witness the shattering of a child's innocence, the courage it takes to break the silence, and the long, arduous road to healing and justice. This story is a reminder that abuse can happen anywhere, to anyone, regardless of social status or outward appearances. It's a call to action for all of us to be vigilant, to listen to our instincts, and to believe in the power of speaking out. The house on Maple Street was a picture of suburban perfection. The manicured lawn, the neatly trimmed hedges, the gleaming windows, all spoke of a life of comfort and contentment. Inside, however, the picture was less idyllic. Lily, once a vibrant, carefree teenager, now moved through the house like a ghost. Her laughter, once a constant melody, had been replaced by an unsettling silence. Her eyes, once sparkling with mischief, now held a haunted look, a deep sadness that mirrored the stormy skies outside. Tommy, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension, continued to live in his own bubble of childhood innocence. He adored his sister, their bond as close as two peas in a pod. He would often find her curled up in her room, lost in a book, and would spend hours building elaborate Lego castles with her, their laughter echoing through the house. But lately, Lily had withdrawn. She spent most of her time locked in her room, the door firmly shut. Her excuses for avoiding family dinners were becoming increasingly frequent. Headaches, homework, fatigue. Tommy, sensing her distress, would often knock on her door, his small voice filled with concern. "Lily, are you okay?" But she would just shake her head, her voice a mere whisper. "It's nothing, Tommy, just a headache." Their stepfather, Greg, noticed Lily's withdrawal too, but his concern was laced with a chilling coldness. "That girl needs to learn some discipline," he'd growl, his eyes narrowing. "She's becoming a problem." Tommy didn't understand. Lily was always such a good girl. She helped with chores, got good grades, and never complained. Why was Greg so angry with her? The first cracks in the facade appeared subtly. It started with small things, a raised voice, a harsh word, a dismissive tone. Greg's temper, once well hidden, began to surface more frequently. One evening, during dinner, Lily politely declined a second helping of mashed potatoes. "I'm not very hungry," she said softly. Greg's face darkened. "Don't be picky," he barked, his voice laced with a dangerous edge. "Eat what's put in front of you." Lily, her eyes wide with fear, quickly scooped up a spoonful of potatoes and forced them down. Another time, Lily came home late from a school dance. Greg met her at the door, his face a mask of fury. "Where the hell were you?" he demanded, his voice booming through the house. Lily, her voice trembling, tried to explain, but Greg cut her off. "Don't lie to me, young lady," he roared, his face inches from hers. Tommy, watching from the sidelines, felt the knot of fear tighten in his stomach. He had never seen Greg like this before. Lily, her eyes filled with tears, retreated to her room, the door slamming shut behind her. The storm arrived with a ferocious fury, mirroring the tempest brewing within the house. Wind howled through the trees, bending them under its relentless force, while rain lashed against the windows in a rhythmic assault. Thunder boomed, shaking the very foundations of the house, sending vibrations through the wooden floors and rattling the glass panes. It was as if nature itself was warning them, echoing the chaos that was about to unfold within these very walls. Tommy sat curled up on the couch, his small frame tucked beneath a worn-out blanket, but the warmth did little to ease the strange unease creeping up his spine. He glanced at the clock on the wall. 8:15 p.m. Julia, his mother, had left for her night shift at the hospital hours ago, leaving them in Greg's care. Greg had promised to make dinner and ensure the kids were in bed on time, but so far, The night had unraveled in an eerie silence. Something was wrong. The usual hum of the television, the occasional bursts of laughter, and the clatter of dishes were all absent. Instead, the house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something sinister to happen. Greg was pacing. His heavy footsteps echoed against the wooden floor, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. The jovial, boisterous man who had once filled their home with forced kindness was nowhere to be seen. Tonight his demeanor had shifted, his jaw tightened, his eyes darkened with something unreadable, something dangerous. Tommy shrank deeper into the couch, trying to become invisible, hoping that if he stayed still enough, quiet enough, Greg wouldn't notice him. Well, Then came the sound, a loud thud from upstairs. Tommy stiffened. The noise was followed by a strangled cry, piercing through the thick silence like a blade through flesh. It was Lily's voice, sharp, terrified, desperate. "No, please, no." Tommy's blood ran cold. His small hands gripped the edges of the couch as his heart pounded violently in his chest. Every nerve in his body screamed for him to move, to do something. But fear had wrapped its icy fingers around his limbs, holding him captive. He turned his wide eyes toward the staircase. Greg's movements became deliberate, his heavy boots thudding against the steps as he climbed toward Lily's room. Lily! From upstairs, Tommy could hear the sounds of a struggle, furniture scraping, muffled cries, and then Greg's voice, low and angry, dripping with menace. "Let me go. Please, stop." Lily's pleas sent a fresh wave of terror through Tommy. He had to act. He had to help. But how? Tommy's mind raced, each passing second stretching unbearably long. He wanted to run upstairs, to throw himself between Greg and Lily, but the raw, unfiltered fear anchoring him to the couch was too overwhelming. He was just a kid. What could he possibly do against someone as strong as Greg? His mother's voice echoed in his mind, a lifeline in the drowning waves of terror. "If you ever feel unsafe, if you ever need help, call 911. With trembling hands, Tommy reached for the phone. His fingers fumbled over the buttons, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. He pressed the numbers, his heart hammering so loudly he thought the operator might hear it through the line. 911, what's your emergency? A calm, steady voice answered, an anchor amidst the storm raging inside him. Tommy's voice was barely a whisper, his throat tight with fear. "My sister. She's screaming. I think she's in trouble." He struggled to get the words out, feeling the panic constricting his chest. "Okay, sweetheart," the operator said, her voice soothing yet firm. "Take a deep breath. Can you tell me your address?" Tommy nodded as if she could see him. 247 Maple Street, he stammered, each word feeling like a Herculean effort. "Help is on the way," she reassured him. "Stay on the phone with me. You're doing great. Can you stay safe where you are?" Tommy gripped the phone tightly, his knuckles white. "I don't know. He's upstairs. I don't want him to see me." "Okay, sweetheart, stay hidden if you can. Help is coming." Her voice remained steady, unwavering, like a lighthouse guiding him through the storm. From upstairs, another sharp cry rang out, and Tommy clenched his jaw, willing the sirens to come faster, praying that this nightmare would end before it was too late. The storm outside howled in protest, but its fury was drowned out by the sound of approaching sirens. Red and blue lights painted the rain-slicked street, their reflections dancing against the walls of the house. Tommy, still clutching the phone, watched from behind the curtain as the squad cars skidded to a halt in the driveway. Officers emerged swiftly, their figures silhouetted against the flashes of lightning streaking across the sky. Unmarked, a firm knock pounded against the front door. "Police! Open up!" The authoritative command sliced through the tension thick in the air. Greg's footsteps were hurried as he descended the stairs. His face was pale, a thin sheen of sweat glistening on his forehead. "What's going on?" he stammered, attempting to feign confusion, but his voice lacked conviction. Behind him, Lily appeared at the top of the stairs. Her hair was disheveled, her face streaked with tears. Her clothes were wrinkled, one sleeve slightly torn. She wasn't screaming anymore, but the horror in her wide, glassy eyes spoke volumes. She didn't need words. Her lips parted, but all that came out was a silent plea, "Help me." The officers didn't hesitate. They pushed past Greg, their eyes scanning the room. One of them gently approached Lily. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his tone soft but urgent. She nodded, her whole body trembling. Greg took a step back, his composure unraveling. "This is ridiculous," he scoffed. "She's lying. I didn't do anything." "Sir, step away from the child," an officer ordered, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. "We need to ask you some questions." Greg opened his mouth to protest, but it was too late. Another officer guided Lily downstairs, wrapping a warm blanket around her shoulders. "You're safe now," he murmured. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Lily let out a sob of relief. Tommy, still clutching the phone, exhaled shakily. The nightmare wasn't over yet, but for the first time that night, he felt something he hadn't dared to before. Hope. The storm outside had subsided, but within the house, a greater storm was raging. The living room was filled with the flashing red and blue lights from the police cars outside, casting an eerie glow against the walls. Officers moved quickly, their radios crackling with urgent chatter. Tommy stood frozen in the corner, his small hands clenched into fists, his breath shaky. He had done what he could. Now, all he could do was watch. Lily sat on the couch, wrapped in a police-issued blanket, her hands trembling as she held on to the edges. Her eyes were distant as if she were somewhere else, somewhere far away where none of this had happened. One of the female officers knelt beside her, speaking softly, gently coaxing words out of her, but Lily could barely speak. Her throat felt raw, her mind heavy with the weight of everything she had endured. Greg stood near the staircase, his face contorted in an expression of feigned innocence. "This is a misunderstanding," he insisted, his voice shaking just enough to sound genuine. "She's confused. She's just a teenager acting out." But the officers weren't convinced. One of them motioned for Julia, who had arrived moments ago, her hospital scrubs still damp from the rain. Her face was pale, her hands gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Mrs. Carter, we need to ask you some questions about your husband. Has he ever shown signs of aggression before?" the officer asked, his voice calm yet firm. Julia's lips parted, but no words came. She had spent years convincing herself that Greg was a good man, that the minor outbursts were just stress, that Lily's unease around him was just teenage rebellion. But now, staring at her daughter's haunted eyes, she knew the truth had been screaming at her all along. She had just been too blind to see it. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, I don't know. I thought he was good to us. But Lily's voice, small yet filled with agony, cut through the room like a knife. "He wasn't. He hurt me for months." And just like that, the illusion shattered. Greg's face twisted in rage, his eyes darting toward the door, as if calculating an escape. But the officers were faster. Within seconds, they moved in, restraining him. He thrashed against them, yelling, cursing, but the sound was drowned out by the ringing in Julia's ears. Tommy clutched his mother's hand, his small body trembling. He had saved his sister, but nothing felt victorious about this moment. Everything had changed forever. The house felt emptier without Greg, but the weight he had left behind was suffocating. Lily barely spoke in the days following his arrest. She stayed in her room, the door locked, the world outside, a place she no longer wanted to exist in. The bruises on her arms were fading, but the ones inside her heart were fresh, raw, gaping wounds that refused to heal. She would sit by her window, staring at the street below, watching as life carried on for others, while hers had stopped. Tommy, once so full of questions, now lived in a silence of his own. He had nightmares almost every night, waking up in cold sweats, the echo of Lily's screams still ringing in his ears. He stopped playing with his toys, stopped watching cartoons. He felt older now, as if childhood had been stolen from him in a single night. Julia tried to hold the family together, but she too was unraveling. The guilt was unbearable. She replayed every conversation, every moment she had ignored the warning signs. How could she have let this happen under her own roof? How could she not have protected her own daughter? One evening, she found Lily sitting by the window, her knees drawn to her chest. Julia sat beside her, the silence stretching between them. "I'm so sorry," Julia whispered, her voice breaking. Lily didn't respond at first, but then, in a voice so small it was barely audible, she said, "I was scared to tell you. I thought you wouldn't believe me." The word stabbed deep. Julia turned to her daughter, her eyes filled with tears. "I should have seen it. I should have protected you." Lily looked at her mother, and for the first time in days, her eyes held something other than pain. "You believe me now?" she whispered. "That's all that matters." The aftermath of Greg's arrest was a complex tapestry of emotions. Relief washed over the family, a wave of liberation after years of living in fear. But it was intertwined with deep-seated trauma, the invisible wounds that lingered long after the physical ones had healed. Lily, though safe, was a changed person. The vibrant, confident girl was replaced by someone withdrawn, jumpy, easily startled by loud noises or sudden movements. She struggled with nightmares, reliving the terror of those nights, the feeling of being trapped and helpless. The world, once a place of endless possibilities, now felt threatening, a minefield of potential dangers. Tommy, too, carried the weight of what he had witnessed. He was hailed as a hero, his bravery lauded by everyone. But beneath the surface, he wrestled with guilt, the what-ifs that haunted his young mind. What if he had acted sooner? What if he hadn't been brave enough to call? The image of his sister's terror was etched into his memory, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within their own home. Julia, the rock of the family, felt the ground beneath her feet crumble. The betrayal she felt was immense, the realization that she had been living with a monster masked as a loving husband and father. The guilt gnawed at her. How could she not have seen the signs? How could she have been so blind? She questioned everything, replaying every interaction with Greg, searching for clues she might have missed. Healing was not a linear process. There were good days and bad days, moments of hope interspersed with periods of despair. Lily began therapy, a long and arduous journey of confronting her trauma, learning to manage her anxiety and reclaiming her sense of self. It was a slow process filled with tears, anger, and the painful reliving of traumatic memories. But with each session, a little bit of the old Lily began to resurface. Tommy also received counseling, learning to process his emotions, to understand that he was not responsible for what had happened. He discovered coping mechanisms for his nightmares, finding solace in drawing and spending time with his friends. Slowly, the weight on his small shoulders began to lighten. Julia sought support groups for victims of domestic abuse, finding strength in understanding and sharing her experiences with others who had walked a similar path. She learned to forgive herself, to accept that she was not to blame for Greg's actions. She focused on rebuilding her life, creating a safe and nurturing environment for her children. Lily's journey took an unexpected turn. As she healed, she discovered a passion for advocacy. She began sharing her story, not to seek pity, but to empower others, to let them know they were not alone. She became a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those still trapped in the shadows of abuse. Tommy, inspired by his sister's courage, found his own way to make a difference. He became involved in anti-bullying campaigns at his school, using his experience to promote empathy and understanding. He learned that even small acts of kindness could make a big difference in someone's life. Julia, once consumed by shame and guilt, became an advocate for domestic violence awareness. She spoke at community events, sharing her story to educate others about the signs of abuse and the resources available to victims. She found strength in helping others, turning her pain into purpose. Years passed, the scars remained, a reminder of the past, but they no longer defined them. Lily went on to college, studying social work, determined to dedicate her life to helping others. Tommy blossomed into a compassionate and thoughtful young man, his empathy and understanding shaped by his experiences. Julia found love again, and a healthy and supportive relationship that brought joy back into her life. Cassie, look, the house on Maple Street still stood, but it no longer held the same dark secrets. It was now a home filled with love, laughter, and the unwavering bond of a family that had faced unimaginable adversity and emerged stronger on the other side. The story you've just heard is a fictionalized account, but sadly it reflects the reality for countless individuals around the world. Domestic violence is a pervasive issue, affecting people of all ages, genders, and backgrounds. It's a hidden epidemic, often shrouded in silence, but its impact is devastating. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please know that you are not alone. There is help available. You can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE 72223. They provide confidential support, resources, and safety planning. Remember, you are not to blame for the abuse. You deserve to be safe and respected. Reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. There are people who care and want to support you. If you are a child or teenager experiencing abuse, you can call the Child Help USA National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-422-4453. They offer confidential support and resources for children and teens. If you are witnessing abuse, don't stay silent. You can make a difference. Report what you see and hear to the authorities or to a trusted adult. This story is a call to action. It's a call to break the silence, to shine a light on the darkness, and to create a world where everyone feels safe and protected. It's a call to be vigilant, to listen to our instincts, and to believe in the power of speaking out. Thank you for listening. If this story has resonated with you, please share it with others. Together we can make a difference. Together we can break the cycle of abuse.